Hello and welcome. It's exactly 12 noon, so let's kick off. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Leadership Perspectives event. I've met many of you before. If you haven't met me, my name is Mark Taylor, and I'm privileged to be the Dean of WashU Olin Business School. And as a top business school, we believe it's vitally important to contribute meaningful thoughts, right, to the marketplace of ideas with this important series. That brings you to this kind of nexus of ideas, innovation, inspiration, in a timely fashion. So, what could be more informative than our annual 660 event, right? An event packed with relevant and helpful tips for success in the year ahead, provided by some of the best and brightest business professionals around. And in just a moment, the program will begin. But first, let me just explain the format for our event. So, as in years past, today's event will provide each of our 6 panelists 10 minutes to share 10 ideas that they found useful in their careers. And after our final panelist has given their presentation, we'll transition to a Q&A session. And if you'd like to submit a question, please use the Q&A feature on your screen, and we'll certainly try to get to as many questions as we can. Okay, so now it's my very great pleasure to introduce today's panel. With us this afternoon are 6 highly accomplished executives, 3 of whom I'm delighted to say, proud to say, are Olin alumni. So please help me in welcoming them. So we have Arvin Cham, a 2009 MBA and MHA alum. And Arvin is Regional Vice President of International and Corporate Operations at Centene Corporation, a world-renowned corporation based here in St. Louis. Next, we have Alicia Henley, founder and CEO of A Dose of Insight. This is a marketing and consulting group also based in St. Louis. We have Stacey Hightower with us. Stacey is a 92 BSBA alumnus and CEO of Omnicom Specialty Marketing based in New York City. Proud to have Stacey with us. Now I'd like to welcome Kristin Johnson, also also an alum, an EMBA 2004 alumna and Chief Human Resources Officer at Edward Jones. We all know Edward Jones, of course. Next, we have Dennis Lauer, President of Innovation Community Strategies, a St. Louis-based tech innovation district consultancy. And finally, last but certainly not least, welcome to Patricia Washington, who is Vice President of Communications at the Urban League of St. Louis. So you haven't come to hear me, you've come to hear our great speakers. So without further ado, let's begin this lightning round style event as I turn things over to our first speaker, Arvin Cham. Arvin, over to you.
Thank you, Dean Taylor. I would also like to thank Olin Business School for inviting me to join this panel today. I'm humbled and honored to be here. Let me see if I can pull my slide real quick. Before I tell you the story of my decade and a half at Centene, let me give you a quick overview of who we are. Centene was founded in 1984. We haven't changed our local approach and a long-held commitment to transform the health of the community one person at a time. This is the very reason why Fortune named us as one of the Change the World and World's Most Admired Companies year after year. When I joined Centene in 2007, we only had about 3,000 employees providing managed care services in 7 states. Today, we're number 42 on Fortune 500 list, with more than 70,000 employees serving 1 in 15 individuals in 50 states. With 25 million members, it is actually closer to 1 in 13 individuals, but we will update this when we hit 1 in 10. Internationally, we continue to grow our presence in the UK, Spain, and Central Europe. My journey at Centene was rather unique. I didn't stay within one functional area over my tenure at the company. I started my career doing mergers and acquisitions. A few years later, I provided leadership and directions for planning and development of new business strategies across the enterprise, while participating in various special projects to accelerate the growth of the companies, especially their product development and business growth initiatives. I was part of the President, Chairman, and CEO's Chief of Staff Office and had the opportunity to work with the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, and other global health initiatives. Later on, I collaborated with external advisors for the evaluation and development of the company's international expansion strategy and established the company's Enterprise Project Management Office. Since then, I've continued to create new governance structure and processes to scale up our international platforms around the world. I'm telling you about my journey at Centene because when I look back at my past 14 years, I always find a way to inspire myself and be passionate about what I do. I was always curious about how different parts of the organization fits together. When there was something that I didn't know, I would reach out and ask questions. Lots of questions most of the time. There is still a lot of that I don't know, and it's okay to continuously learn something new. In fact, admitting and embracing what you don't know may be the most confidence-inspiring thing we can do. My curiosity and my eagerness to learn something new were my drivers to take on special projects even outside of my functional area. These special projects in turn created opportunity for me to move from one role to another. I also have a philosophy that there isn't a playbook out there, and there isn't a perfect solution. The world is evolving around us, especially in healthcare, and we all have to figure out a better way to solve an issue. I believe in this mindset of building or creating something new and unique is the first half of the equation to help my team to innovate. The other half of the equation for innovation is taking calculated risk. Since there's no playbook out there, you need to know it's okay to make mistakes. This is how we learn, and this is how we succeed, to learn from our mistakes, and to prove that mistake is only a layover to success. It's much better to build the plane while you're flying towards something than trying to knit together a parachute while you're falling towards the ground. Trajectory and mindset matters. During my career at Centene, I've made many mistakes, and I've learned a lot from them. I was also lucky along the way to learn how to tailor my message to the right audience and target the right moment to rise up to the occasion. Most of the time, you can't control when opportunities pop up around you. However, you can master the ability to recognize these moments and take advantage of them when they come up. I think being lucky helped, but my desire to succeed and to leave a mark in the world has been my inspiration to be a great leader, getting me to where I am today. Now, let's look at the other side, to lead by example. We're talking about leadership, which means leading other people. Early on in my career, I learned to surround myself with people smarter than me and have more experience than me. As leaders, our job is to set the vision, know where our limits are, and let the team work together to figure it out. If you have a capable team you can trust, all you need to do is to provide them with your vision and strategy. Don't stand in the way of the team's strengths, and listen to them. They are your advisors to help you make the right decision. One of the philosophies that still sticks with me from my organizational behavioral course at Olin was task conflict is good, relationship conflict is bad. For us to have a well-rounded perspective, we need diversity of thoughts. We need to learn about other people's perspective and be able to communicate with respect, even when we deeply disagree. We need to be able to change course and be willing to walk away. As a leader, You won't please everyone all the time, including yourself. Learn how to listen and have a balanced perspective. There will be times when you hate the right decision. Make the right decision anyway. Also, operate and stand for something larger than yourself. Take personal responsibilities to challenge each other. Capitalize on your diverse talents amongst your team. Remove barriers that are in their way and help them to capture value and accelerate impact. Last but not least, hold yourself and others accountable. And don't make excuses. In my own life, I have a personal board of directors. They are a group of diverse individuals whom I admire and trust. My board includes retired executives, individuals from both health and non-healthcare industry, with expertise across various functional areas, from finance to legal, from human resources to strategy, from operations to entrepreneurship. There are men and women with ages ranging from late 30s to late 60s living around the world. And of course, my husband is one of my personal board of directors. I meet with them on a periodic basis to make sure I have a balanced perspective and hold myself accountable, both personally and professionally. When I have a tough decision to make, I look to them for guidance and advice. Well, these are my 10 leadership principles for today. To sum up, inspire yourself and lead by example. If you're lucky enough to have the opportunity to lead, you have the privilege to make a difference. You have the duty to lift others up and make the world a better place for all. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Arvin, so much. Much appreciated. Great job and great content. Up next, we have Miss Alicia Henley. Alicia?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Olin Business School, for inviting me today. I am definitely humbled and excited to share my inspirations. First, a little bit about me. I am a marketer by trade. I have done multiple marketing things. I've from social media, marketing analytics, email and campaign design and development. I've worked for highly branded companies like Orbitz and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And most recently and locally, I have worked for the St. Louis Regional Chamber. Today, I serve as the founder and CEO of A Dose of Insight, which is a marketing strategy and consulting firm here in the St. Louis area. We help small businesses define and document their marketing strategies and plans. My leadership insights. First and foremost, you have to believe in yourself and exude confidence. So it's not enough to just believe in yourself. You actually have to show that confidence in others. Think about the people that you think are good leaders. They are very confident, and they are confident enough to make you believe in them. Excuse me. I read a quote from a pastor that said, "We struggle with insecurities because we compare our behind the scenes with others' highlight reel." Think about that. As you scroll through social media, as you read articles about the success of others, you think of all the hardships and the obstacles that you have faced to get to where you are. And that's what you compare to others' highlight reel. I submit to you, create your own highlight reel. Think about the successes and the achievements that you've made to get to where you are today, and focus on that and allow that to fuel your confidence in yourself. Be uncomfortable. It is in being uncomfortable that we grow and we learn the most. When I was hired at the St. Louis Regional Chamber, I knew that I needed to build out the marketing function within this organization. Had I done that before? No. Was I nervous? Absolutely. But I knew that the experience and skills that I had led me to this point. And I took that stretch objective and I was able to be very successful in that role with those objectives. And I learned more than any place else that I have worked. Be authentic. People follow people that they trust. People allow leaders that they trust to build honest and open relationships. Why would you want to be anything other than yourself? And I submit to you, bring your authentic self at all times. The next one is something that I actually had to learn. Accept help when offered and ask for help when needed. I thought that asking for help or needing help was a sign of weakness, when it is exactly the opposite. None of us can do anything alone. None of us have the capability to do everything that needs to be done. So you need to surround yourself with people that supplement your skill set, people that are willing to help you succeed. You need to be brave enough to ask for help when it is needed. To go along with that, you need to be inspiring. For those that are around you, you need to inspire them. You need to give them a hand up. As a leader, the best part of leadership is seeing someone that you have helped exceed their wildest expectation. Be present. With technology and people wanting instant gratification to text messages and emails, it's very easy to get hung up in being attached to your cell phone. Be present. If you are you're losing 40% of what is exactly in front of you if you're attached to your technology. Be inclusive. This goes back to being uncomfortable. We all want to be around people that look like us, think like us, act like us. But I submit to you, diversify your circle. As a leader, you're going to have to lead people that don't necessarily look like you or think like you. If you are proactive to be inclusive, you will develop better leadership skills. As a child, your mother said, treat others the way that you want to be treated. I challenge that today and say to you, treat others the way they want to be treated. People remember how you make them feel. And if you take the time to understand what motivates and drives them, they are going to feel better as a person. So understand how they want to be treated and do that. No is a complete sentence. As leaders, we often have to tell people no. It's not easy. It's not fun. But we learn from this, it is all in the delivery. So make sure that when you're delivering that message, you're coming up with workarounds or different solutions to the no that you are delivering. My final point really sums up 1 through 9, because if you do the right thing in everything that you do, 1 through 9 automatically falls into place. I think each and every one of us fundamentally knows the difference between right and wrong. And if, as a leader, you choose to do right, you are always going to be a good, positive leader. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for sharing those wonderful tips. Really appreciate that. Up next, we have Stacey Hightower. Stacey?
Thank you, Amy. And let me get to share my screen here. Great. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here and share with you some of my experiences. My first slide is a short synopsis of my career journey, which will be followed by my 10 career insights. I believe the education that I received at WashU is the most influential factor in my professional career due to the combination of excellent instruction and top-notch peer experiences. Scholarships made WashU affordable and were intentional by the university to build an inclusive student population. My athletic experiences have influenced my management style, which is based on team building. I'm extremely proud that in 2012, my wife and I were able to establish a scholarship in my parents' name. After graduating WashU, I joined Edward Jones, hello there, Kristin, right there in the city of St. Louis, followed by my experience in the Peace Corps as a small business advisor, giving microcredit to women's groups. After MBA school, I spent 14 years as a turnaround and restructuring consulting fixing distressed companies. 6 years ago, I joined Omnicom Group, a holding company that owns 200 plus marketing and communications businesses. I manage a global portfolio of 7 agencies with roughly 10,000 employees that focus on retail and consumer experience. Before we dive into my career insights, I just have a few words I'd like to share. I'm a big believer that talent is evenly distributed, but opportunities are not. My first 5 insights are generally not taught in a formal setting and are intangibles versus hard skills. At the same time, if you don't come from a background where these insights are taught at home, you may be operating at a disadvantage. So particularly for individuals of underrepresented backgrounds, you should seek to incorporate these intangibles into your career toolbox. Your skill set alone will not ensure a successful career. These insights can and will have a huge impact on the velocity of your career. Some of them I've learned only after the fact, as my peers' careers were accelerated ahead of mine, while I was left to learn the lesson. So hopefully, many of you out there can avoid a similar situation. For the leaders out there, particularly those from majority populations, you have the opportunity to influence the culture of your organizations. And these 5 insights should spur provocation as to how your organization and yourself can make intentional efforts to ensure such opportunities exist for all employees. I've also included a couple of short studies that address some of these topics, and for those of you looking for additional information. First, DE&I. In 2020, equity at every part of our society came to the fore, and DE&I is now a leading focus. As mentioned, my WashU experience is the single most important influence in my professional career. WashU was and is a trailblazer in creating opportunities for diverse student populations. To describe D&I often use the analogy of being invited to a party. We've all been to a party that isn't quite your vibe. Well, the same feeling may exist in your place of work for certain employees. To make them feel welcomed, diversity is being invited to the party. Equity is playing music that your diverse guests like and allowing song requests. And inclusion is asking your guests to dance. If every employee feels the same level of welcome in your organization, your culture will deliver outsized performance. Next, belonging. There's a lot written about highly functioning teams. I believe belonging is a primary underpinning of a highly functioning team. The definition of belonging is such: you feel seen for your unique contributions, you are connected to your coworkers, you are supported in your daily work and career development, and you are proud of your organization. You can unlock so much potential in the individual as well as the organization when we create environments where individuals feel they belong. To the individuals out there, seek, find, and build environments of belonging. To the leaders out there, statistics show top talent will seek such environments. So be a magnet and not a repellent. Next, mentorship. We've all learned through our experiences. You can accelerate your learning curve and look around corners by creating an advisory board that can provide you direction as you are presented with new experiences. A mentor is not limited to someone within your place of work. They can be from outside of your organization. Next, sponsorship. While mentors can come from outside of your organization, generally sponsors are limited to within your organization. The allocation of the majority of inputs for a successful career, such as the best client assignments, roles, promotions, and bonuses, may be decided with you not being in the room where it happens. Hence, the reference to the play Hamilton and the song The Room Where It Happens. Your career will be greatly enhanced by having a sponsor or champion. They are internal, a more senior voice than yours, who will support and advocate your desires for opportunities and growth. Those of you in leadership positions, think about who is and isn't being sponsored, and be intentional about having a diverse group of employees sponsored. Personally, this is the one insight I wish I had learned before I even left WashU, as I've seen a few of my peers' careers be accelerated by a sponsor. Next, networking. The larger your professional network, the more opportunities, whether it be new business or jobs, will come your way. Join professional organizations, particularly those industry specific. Right or wrong, much of business is done through personal relationships or endorsements from others. We are humans and we enjoy working with people we know and like. But again, as a diverse employee, you may be at a disadvantage due to your limited network. And again, as leaders, let's look to open and share our network and network experiences with our younger talent. The next 5 insights are less universal strategies and more specific to my personal preferences. Run to the smoke or the fire. As I mentioned, I was a turnaround and restructuring consultant. I like problem solving. Oftentimes, professional opportunities avail themselves in the challenges within an organization rather than in the steady state. Not everyone has the temperament for such intense situations, but I've been able to make it useful in my career. The one takeaway here is it's easy to get people to focus on the direction ahead if the bridge behind them is out. Work yourself out of a job. I had a boss who had a desk plaque that said, "Success is a ticket to a bigger problem." You can't take on new responsibilities until the existing ones are performing well. Create an environment that develops talent and matriculates the talent to higher levels of responsibility. You will build a strong reputation at all levels of the organization, and by delegating work, it allows you to focus on new opportunities that take your career to the next level. The moral of the story: help yourself succeed by helping others succeed. Number 8, entrepreneurial. Every day I ask myself, how can I add value to the organization? Therefore, I've remained entrepreneurial while under a corporate umbrella. I've been able to establish new revenue streams by building an agency and platforms in my current organization, allowing me to show direct value creation. Number 9, change agent. The one constant in life is change, so be comfortable with change and propel it. I believe continuous improvement keeps your organization on a growth trajectory. Don't just identify a problem, but also offer a solution and strive to implement change. Number 10, collaboration. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. Through cross-functional collaborative teams, you will deliver better outcomes with a higher probability of adoption, since so many people are invested in its success. The diversity of thought and perspective improves the output. You can still operate with urgency, but with collaboration, you will have greater impact. And because I always like to over-deliver, here's number 11, philanthropy. Giving back is key to my DNA. I encourage you to find a topic or an issue you're passionate about and get involved, whether it's contributing your time or your money. You will create endorphins that will make yourself feel better, and you will also create social impact that will make the world incrementally better. And with that, I say thank you and for allowing me to participate today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stacey. Love the tips that you left with us. Up next, we have Kristin Johnson. Kristin?
Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Stacey and the other panelists. This has been a great conversation so far, and I've been feverishly writing down ideas from the other panelists. So excited to be with you today and share my 10 ideas. So let me share screen real quick. Okay, so let me set some context for my 10 ideas, which I've titled Be Your Own 10. So I've been at Edward Jones for 25 years now, and I'll say grew up in our operations and service and internal audit side of the business. And in 2013, moved over to our branch development side, leading the role of our branch assistants in our branch locations. And so very different role for me. And part of that was the opportunity to do more public speaking, and had not really had much opportunity to do that. And I think it was my number one fear at the time. And so I would have to present to large groups in our field in the home office. And it would always be quite an event, quite a process for me. And I've been in the role for a while, and I had a development session with one of my mentors, one of our most senior leaders in the organization, and a sponsor, and he was my leader for a period of time. And he said to me, he was giving me feedback. He said, you know, you're doing some things really well, but you really need to focus on your presentation skills. And he said, you know, and he said my colleague's name, and I'll call her Jane. Jane is a 10 and you are a 5. And I melted in my seat, of course, you know, hearing that a 5, I was thinking at least, you know, a 6 or something like that. But it took me some time to process that and reflect, and also maybe some therapy at the same time, to really understand that, you know, we all have strengths, we all have opportunities, but I really needed to focus on certainly improving in that space, but I needed to be my own 10. And that's really what I've anchored to. And as part of that reflection at the time, developed these 10 ideas, which have become very evergreen for me, in terms of how I lead and how I strive to make an impact at Edward Jones and with my family and in the community. So with that, I thought I'd go through each of these. My first one is keeping a journal of positive things that happen. And, over the years, I've had journals, I've had diaries, and I tended to write things that didn't go so well because I needed an outlet to kind of work through those scenarios. And what I recognized is that I really needed kind of a gratitude journal or a positive journal where when something really good did happen, that I could jot that down. And then on those days where we have those maybe days that don't go as well, I could use that to continue to bolster my confidence in moving forward. So that's number one. Number two, create a positive self-talk phrase. And it probably won't be a shock that mine is be your own 10. And that's what I say to myself when I get into that element of self-doubt, of just feeling that I'm not as confident as I need to be in the situation. And I'm on the senior leadership team here at Edward Jones, and I have been for a few years. And I have to tell you, I still get that feeling that it used to be we were in a physical boardroom, that someone was going to come in and tap me on the shoulder and say, you're in the wrong room. Now I get that feeling on a Zoom screen when I think, oh my gosh, maybe I've entered the wrong Zoom. So we all have those moments where we're confident, but maybe that self-doubt creeps in. And that's when I use my positive self-talk phrase. The third one is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think Arvin may have mentioned this, or Alicia, absolutely. I've certainly had the grateful opportunity to move around quite a bit at Edward Jones. So I've had to move into spaces where I wasn't the expert. And that was such a growth opportunity for me and continues to be. We're in a transformational journey here at Edward Jones. And so there's more unknown right now than known. And so really getting comfortable with the uncomfortable has been really important for me to continue to grow and develop. I think Stacey just talked about mentorship. My fourth one is on selecting different mentors for different reasons. So I've had different mentors over the years and still do. I try to take like a 360-degree view of mentorship. So I have different needs that I'll have, and I'll reach out to a younger colleague that's earlier in career, or maybe a more veteran colleague or a peer, a diverse colleague, just depending on what my need is and where I feel like I'd really like to grow myself, or I'm encountering a challenge. That determines my mentor, and it's really a 360-degree view of that. I think sometimes we think of mentors have more experience and more knowledge, and maybe we look up. And I like to look all around when I'm thinking about the mentors that I need to support my growth and development. Number 5 is accept there is always someone better than you. My parents taught me this, and it continues to ring true to this day. And, my perspective, I think, has shifted over the years in terms of that's a really, really good thing, because it takes all of us to really move things forward here at Edward Jones. And so, like that conversation I had with my mentor several years ago on public speaking, I think that's a really good thing now. Of course, there's going to be somebody that's better at public speaking than I am, or whatever it is. But together, collectively, we all bring our strengths. And that's what makes a kind of a powerful team to drive progress. My number 6 is have a hobby or outlet. Mine is running. I started running when I had my second son 17 years ago. And it's been a great outlet for me to just, a way to clear my mind and stay sane on certain days. And so we all have a hobby. I hope you have a hobby or outlet. It doesn't have to be running, but finding something that you love and that you can make part of your routine. It's not something else to do. It's really part of who you are. I think is such a gift that helps us in terms of our growth and confidence. Number 7 is being okay with saying, I don't know. I think I heard this earlier as well. It's interesting when we were children and you're going to school, the teacher would call on you. You never would want to say, I don't know, right? I mean, that we're kind of conditioned to saying that. So or to condition to knowing. So growing up that way and really being, I think, more of a perfectionist in my younger life, really had to get comfortable as I went into these different roles at Edward Jones and areas I wasn't the expert, to get comfortable saying, I don't know. And that's really been a liberating thing as well. And it's not, I don't know. And that's the end of it. It's, I don't know, but I'll go find out and get the answer that we need. Number 8 is surround yourself with those that lift you higher. A classic quote from Oprah. I recognized a few years ago that there are individuals that really are fueled by negative energy, and finding myself getting drawn into that more so than I needed to, or was productive for what I needed to accomplish and for my own, positivity. So surround yourself with those that lift you higher. I'm drawn and certainly surround myself with those that are really, really embracing that positive energy. Number 9 is ask for and accept help. You don't have to do it all. Absolutely. This has taken me a while, and I still am a work in progress on this one, is that, there's so, the world is changing so quickly and there's so much to do, of course. And I again, back to your childhood, which I think we learned so much from, was very independent, continue to be, but I didn't really want help from anyone. I wanted to, demonstrate that I could do it myself. And as you grow up and certainly now into the responsibilities I have today, there's no way, I can do it all. And so really asking for help and finding that those that you ask for help really value being asked to help. And so that's been a really good learning for me. And then number 10, my last one, is find an accountability partner to help keep your priorities straight. My accountability partner is my husband, PK. We've been married for 23 years, and he continues to help me try to integrate work and non-work. Even last night, I got home from work, and we have an older son that's a freshman in college, and then our younger son's a senior in high school. So they're very close together. My senior in high school has been virtually learning. It's really been a tough senior year. And he said, why don't we play ping pong with Caden tonight? And I thought, gosh, I have so much, I needed I need to prepare for this actually. So I make sure I was sharing these ideas with you. And he said, nope, put that iPad away. We're going to play ping pong tonight. So I hope you have those accountability partners to keep your priorities straight. So those are my 10 ideas. Be your own 10. The quote at the bottom of my slide, be yourself because everyone else is taken, by Oscar Wilde, rings true to that. I think it's very important. We all bring our unique strengths, and that's what makes us all collectively better off. And these are the 10 things that I focus on as I, hopefully make a positive impact at Edward Jones, with my family, and in the community. So back to you, Amy, and thank you so much.
No, thank you, Kristin. Wonderful. And I love the quote at the end by Oscar Wilde. That's one of my favorites. So thank you so much. Up next, we have our speaker, Dennis Lower. Dennis, throwing it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here a moment. Okay. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Dean Taylor, for the opportunity. Listening to my predecessors on the panel, we have a lot of themes that are very similar. My career path is a bit unconventional, so I'll start there and explain a little about my background before I launch into factors that have been very important for me in my career. So I have an undergraduate degree in philosophy and a graduate degree in theology. And I spent a few years in a traditional pulpit ministry as a Presbyterian minister in Boston, before I decided then to pursue my interest in social justice and focus on community development. I moved to Philadelphia at that time, and I started a national nonprofit housing organization. And a few years into that, about 7 or 8 years into that, I was invited to go to Atlantic City to start a new state agency that took $40 million a year from the casinos and invested it in community development in Atlantic City and across the state. I got to take some of that money from Trump Plaza. Then I spent 25 years after that developing 3 urban technology districts in New Jersey, Louisiana, and then I came and finished out here in St. Louis. So since middle of 2020, I've been retired after 10 years as the president and CEO of the Cortex Innovation Community. So what have I learned along the way? I want to share those 10 things with you. First is always lead through your values. Be an ethical leader. Ethical leadership is in short supply, particularly in these days. Commit yourself to something that is important to society, that is bigger than yourself and bigger than your own success. Always seek solutions that work for all parties, not just yourself or your company. The goal of ethical leadership is to leave the world a better place and create value for all of its shareholders, not just yours. Second, travel has been very important in shaping my worldview and my leadership style. Travel develops a multicultural appreciation and different ways of seeing the world that inform your leadership perspective and style. I've been fortunate over my years to travel globally a number of times. And at the age of 19, I spent a summer in Indonesia and Thailand. I was a wide-eyed teenage college student immersed in a cross-cultural potpourri during the Vietnam War, and I've never been the same since then. I've spent the rest of my life unpacking the lessons that I learned from that trip. Juxtaposing and pondering Far Eastern and Western culture has made me a more insightful, empathetic, inclusive, and thoughtful leader. Third, educationally, study and major in what's most engaging and most of interest to you. There were many discussions with my working class parents in central Pennsylvania on what jobs that I could get with a philosophy degree. I've counseled my college son, who expressed interest in business, to major in a liberal arts degree that interests him: history, psychology, political science, maybe even philosophy. If he wants to pursue a business career, he can always get an MBA grad degree. In my opinion, a liberal arts degree positions one to bring a broader cultural perspective and understanding to the business world, which is an advantage also in one's career. Fourth, not only pursue a degree of interest, but pursue a career that interests you and for which you have a passion. A mentor from afar over the years, Professor Joseph Campbell at Sarah Lawrence University, said it best: follow your bliss. A 40-year career means that you will get up early over 9,000 days in your working life. You're going to work for over 75,000 hours. So for heaven's sake, find something to invest these precious hours in that are meaningful to you and that you feel passionate about. Find what lights up your core and commit to pursuing it. Seek to make your avocation your vocation, but recognize that your passion and interest will likely change through your career and be willing to pivot. So don't be afraid to take chances, whether at the beginning, the middle, or the end of your career. When your main street becomes too pedestrian, turn the corner. Explore a new streetscape, new opportunities. Don't be afraid to blaze your own path. The scariest part of trailblazing is entering the forest where there is no trail, which is what trailblazing is really all about. It takes courage to enter the forest, but once you are in it, you'll find your way through it by a series of iterative decisions and choices. This may sound like platitudes, but it's been true in my own experience. Speaking of courage to enter the forest, it takes me to the next lesson I learned: speak truth to power. Ethical leadership leads from your center, lives with integrity, and stands on principle. But somewhere along one's career path, you will need to be courageous. Speak your truth to those who have power over your livelihood. In speaking truth to power, be prepared to accept the consequences. Sometimes you get fired, as I did. But that exit, not of my own choosing, led to doors that otherwise would never have opened. In fact, it started me on a 25-year career path in building innovation districts. During a career, doors will open when doors close. It's important to trust the way forward, particularly when the path is not yet clear or fully manifested. Frequently, the doors that open will surprise you and offer serendipitous opportunities that you never imagined would happen. Lead from your truth, trust the path, trust that doors will open. To a practical principle, be a good partner and collaborator. You've heard this a number of times today. I couldn't have achieved what I did without collaboration and support from a host of others. Partnerships bring diverse perspectives, observations, and opinions to the task at hand, which makes the final product much stronger. And when you achieve collaborative success, share the praise and accolades with everyone and publicly acknowledge that it was a team effort. Everything is negotiable. Reasonableness and compromise are keys to success. In my career, I negotiated over $2 billion of real estate projects. We got to yes on those projects because we didn't let our disagreements trip us up. Deal up front with all the issues that you can agree on and set aside the challenging deal points to revisit them later. Typically, there are only a small number of challenging issues, though they can crater a deal. It's also a good idea to save a few challenging items for the end that you can give up on and give in on, which helps to get the deal across the finish line. And finally, practice being present to the moment. Be present to yourself and be present to others, to your thoughts and feelings, and to what others are thinking and feeling. Stop thinking about your counter to the point being made in a conversation with your spouse, your child, your staff, or in a business negotiation. Practice listening. One of my board members in the first tech park that I developed was the president of Bell Atlantic, New Jersey, back when there were still baby bells. I met monthly one-on-one with him in his office. The ritual was always the same. I would enter his office where he was behind his desk. He would stand, we would shake hands and exchange greetings. Then he would pick up a double-sided nameplate holder on his desk, and we went to his conference table where he placed it between us. Both sides of the nameplate holder carried the same message: be here now. I've carried that message with me during my career. Practice listening and being in the present moment. It makes us a better family member, a better friend, and a better leader. I'd like to close with this from Joseph Campbell from The Power of Myth. Follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls. Put yourself on a track that has been there all the while, waiting for you. And that life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. Thank you.
Wonderful job, Dennis, thank you so very much. I appreciate the last tip that you have there. I think we could all probably be in the moment more often. So thank you. Up next, our final speaker is Miss Patricia Washington. Patricia?
Hi, thank you. I appreciate it. This has been such an amazing opportunity, and just listening to people and being reminded of some of the things and learning new things. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here today. And I thank Washington University and everyone at Olin Business School for putting this event together and for inviting me to participate. So my name is Patricia Washington. I am Vice President of Communications here at, in my opinion, the #1 and the best urban league in the country. And I'm responsible for ensuring that we communicate all the great things that we're doing to empower communities and change people's lives here at the Urban League. I am a former journalist. I used to be the editor of the St. Louis American newspaper, and I was a reporter for about 8-9 years. Founder of a strategic communications firm called On Point Communications, and I have the distinction of being, to my knowledge, the only person to have served as a press secretary to a mayor in the city of St. Louis, and then serve as director of communications in St. Louis County. So I straddled both lines and have that whole regional perspective that I can bring to the table. And finally, I think I'm just a lifelong learner. So that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate this forum. And it has helped me just learn a few things today. So I'm going to screen share. I was sharing earlier that I felt like a bit of a slacker because I didn't have a slide, but I do have a slide that I want to share as I try to take you through my 10 points today. And one thing I didn't share is that I am a huge basketball fan. I love sports, all sports, but I love basketball. So some of the things that we'll talk about today or that I'll share, you'll find they have a lot of sports analogies, especially to basketball. So if you're ready, let's go. The first thing that I want to talk about is bounce back better. That's one of the things that I have learned along my journey to being a leader, if I can be so privileged to be called that, but bounce back better. So what does that mean? Let's face it, we're all going to make mistakes. They happen. Things happen and they don't turn out the way we want them. We're going to fail at something. All of us are at some point. But the idea is not to get stuck in what you failed at. So I'll give you an example, a basketball example. I was coaching basketball, and one of my players created a turnover in the game, close game, and he had the ball stolen from him as we were, driving for a basket. And the other team stole the ball, drove down the court, scored a bucket, and almost cost us the game. At a timeout, I took my player out of the game, not because I wanted to punish him, but I wanted him to understand that in that moment where he made a mistake, instead of him bouncing back better and hustling back and getting on defense and setting up and maybe preventing a basket by the other team, he was stuck in the moment of where he made a mistake. And we all get there, whether we're embarrassed or it's out of humility or, we're angry or we're frustrated, but you can't stay stuck in that moment because then you miss the opportunity to set yourself up to do something good. So when you make a mistake, we have to remember, always try to bounce back better. Set yourself up for that next opportunity. The other thing that I want to share is you can't coach hype. So what does that mean? There are some things that we all do well. And yes, this is another basketball analogy. You can teach a player to shoot better. You can teach them how to read the floor better. You can teach them a lot of things. But one thing you can't teach, you can't coach is height. You're either tall or you're not. And being a leader, especially in a business environment, one of the things you have to really learn and own, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What can you learn? In other words, how can you be coached? You can coach up, but there are some things that you just can't do. You don't do well. So you leave that to people who do that well. Do what you do. Do what you do well. and then surround yourself with people who do things better than you do. And so I have learned that over time, that the most important thing that you can do is rely on people who do things better than you do, because you'll spend a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to coach height. You can't coach height. Just recognize what you do, embrace what you do, learn what you can, improve how you can, and recognize when it's better to bring in experts or somebody who do things better than you do. And I know you guys forgive me for all my coaching analogies, but that's just who I am. There's another one I want to share, and it's called $1 Million Moves and a Nickel Finish. Now, oh my gosh, what does that mean? We've seen all of the hype that kind of goes into an athlete. And if you've ever watched a basketball game, especially some of the high school games, and you have them, they come out on the floor before game and they're doing their warm up and they have all these $1 million moves, and you get all excited and they're flashing, you're like, oh, and ooh. And then when it's time to make a simple layup, they miss it. They can't get it done. So you have all these $1 million moves and a nickel finish. Meaning that when it's really time, when it's your moment, when it's really time for you to deliver, you cannot do it. So it makes no sense to have all of this big buildup to all these $1 million moves, and then you have a nickel finish. So make sure that you practice your finish. Make sure that you are able to really bring things home, and that you're not just a lot of hype and a lot of flash in the pan. And that's going to bring me to my next one. And that is about just being humble. There is a lot of push and a lot of pressure these days, especially as it comes with social media. Instagram, you're always in the moment, and you're always trying to keep up with the Joneses, and people are always showing you what they bought, what promotion they had, something great that happened to them. And then I'm wondering, have sometimes we lost our humility? And so we always want to know about how to be humble and how to find the best in people, no matter what else they may bring with them. I'm going to share a little tongue twister here with you. And I know I'm going to have to write this down and send it to you in some way. But my mother had a poster in our kitchen, actually it was in the kitchen. And it said, there is so much bad in the best of us and so much good in the worst of us that it hardly behooves any of us to talk about the rest of us. And what I learned from that was that we are all parts of all kinds of things, good, bad, all of us are a mixture of both. And so we have to really find the goodness, find that good in everything, everybody, every situation, and build on that and always be humble. So I'll say that again. There's so much good there's so much bad in the best of us and so much good in the worst of us that it hardly behooves any of us to talk about the rest of us. I'll leave that with you. Another thing I want to share quickly is be the last one in the room. Politics taught me that, working in politics and working at an executive level, there's always the meeting after the meeting, right? And you always want to know who's the person in the room who's influencing that decision. And if that person is not you, then you want to make sure that you are at least have a good relationship with the person who is the last one in the room. Embrace other cultures. Western medicine learned this lesson a long time ago. You'll be surprised at how much you can learn and how much that can sharpen your skills and your reasoning and your success when you learn from other cultures. I talked about Western medicine. There are so many examples in medicine where when you look at other cultures and how they resolve illness and how they use natural methods and how they use other methods to cure things without always prescribing a prescription. So one of the things we always want to be open to, especially as we grow into a more diverse community and a more diverse workplace, embrace other cultures and be willing to learn from those experiences. The next one I want to talk about is know when to leave. That is so important. Never stay in the game after you've reached your the highest level of success. You always want to know when to leave. I heard this a lot with boxers. You see some boxers and they're past their prime and they're still in the game, and it's just painful to watch. Know when to leave. If you are in a situation as a leader or as you're coaching leaders, know when you're not being valued. Know when you've reached the point where your contributions may not be received well, or maybe you've maxed out in terms of the hierarchy. You can't rise anymore in that agency. Maybe you can't grow anymore. There's nothing left for you to learn, and there's nothing left for you to contribute. You have to know when to leave. And the most important thing about that is you also have to have an exit strategy. We spend a lot of time preparing to get a job. We spend a lot of effort and energy trying to climb the ladder and get the next level and the accolades, but we don't spend enough time planning our exit. And so it's extremely important to know when to leave and how to plan your exit. When I was working in politics, one of the first days on the job, you write your resignation letter. You don't sign it, you don't date it, but you submit it, because there's going to come a time when someone may have to tap you on the shoulder, whether you're taking one for the team or it's just your time. And you may have to sign and date that resignation letter. You need to have a plan for when that happens. So know when to leave and know how to have an exit strategy. Spend some time on that. The next three things are really important. Forgiveness is an asset. Learn how to forgive yourself. Learn how to forgive colleagues when they make a mistake, when situations are not always end up in your favor. And sometimes we question whether people we take things personally. Learn the act of forgiveness and understand that that is an asset. It is not weakness. It doesn't mean that you forget things. It means that you forgive and move on so that you can be in a better space, so that you can prosper and be your best self. The other thing is, as a leader, is being resourceful. You can get a long way on your intellect. You can get a long way on who you know and how to network. But I promise you, one of the best lessons you'll ever learn and one of the best attributes of a leader is how to be resourceful. If someone can't get that shipment to your plant and you know how to make that happen through maybe non-traditional channels, but you get it there, then you are the person who is going to be considered that go-to individual. So you're going to need to learn how to be resourceful, and maybe in some non-traditional ways. It's always good to have some people who, to know a person. I have a guy, or I know somebody. And that typically means you know somebody who can deliver. And so if you can be counted on as a person who, through your resourcefulness, you can deliver, that is a wonderful asset to have as a leader. And I promise you, you will be in demand. And then the final thing that I want to share, no, it's not a sports analogy, but I'm sure it can be applied in a sports environment, is saving face. We are often in a very highly competitive environment. And there are often times when you just can't classify it as any other way. There are some winners and there are some losers. And you always want to be able to give someone an opportunity to lose with dignity. Never humiliate anyone, never make them feel as though somehow they can never recover from whatever that transaction is. Always give the opportunity for someone to walk away with dignity, no matter what the situation is. So those are my tips for sharing things that I have learned over time, and I hope you'll find some of those useful. And I truly appreciate the opportunity to share those with you today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing all of those wonderful tips. And thank you to our entire panel for everything that you have shared with our audience today. So we will have a Q&A session now, so we can go ahead and get started with that. I'm sure we have a few questions. So I'm going to kick it off with the first question that came in already. And I think we have about 6 minutes still remaining in our time. So each panelist might have an opportunity to kind of share their thoughts on this. So let me go ahead. It is often said, be willing to fail, but fail fast and learn. What are the top 3 to 5 signs that you are failing at a particular task, objective, or initiative? Being able to recognize one is failing is the first step in learning. So whoever might have something to share with us, that'd be great.
Amy, would you just repeat the beginning of that question?
Yeah, sure. And my colleague Alicia can post this in our chat so everyone can see. So the question is, it is often said, be willing to fail, but fail fast and learn. What are the top 3 to 5 signs that you are failing at a particular task, objective, or initiative? Being able to recognize one is failing is the first step to learning.
Yeah, Amy, I'll just jump in. Just a couple of thoughts. I think about those times, and I think about just feeling like I was dropping balls, or plates, however you want to say that. And I was getting a number of questions that I didn't have the answers to. And I just really felt like I'm in over my head here, and I need to regroup and reset, figure out, kind of what we're trying to accomplish and what I need to do or learn in order to be successful. So it actually was more of a, you kind of have that physical reaction as well, I think, when you just kind of feel like you're over your head and you've got to regroup so that you can chart a new path forward.
I would like to say that, especially if read the room. If you're able to read the room, you know pretty quickly if you're failing. So I would say be able to read the room, watch people's expressions, watch their responses to whatever it is you're presenting. If it's a particular tactic or strategy or approach to something, read the room and watch the reactions.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo that, like listen to the ones around you and look for cues. And in addition to that, you also need to foster a trusted and candid environment so that people actually can give you those candid feedbacks. I think that's a very important part of it.
Yeah, I would just build on what everyone else said. In those times, I've kind of felt like I might be speaking a different language than everyone else in the room. And you kind of look around and try and read the room. And then I think also, having your advisory board, your mentors, etc., being able to go back to them and say, hey, here was the situation. Here's what I felt. Obviously they weren't in the room, but based on the context you give them, they might be able to help you validate that. Yeah, yes, you're in a failing situation, and maybe there's a strategy to recover, or it might be, a lesson learned.
Absolutely. Alicia, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as the kind of analyst among us, depending on what it is, if you set up your execution such that you can measure it, you will have quantitative results to understand whether or not whatever it is you're executing is working or not, and then you can course correct very quickly.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those. And since we're a little short on time, I do want to get to this one question because I think this would be great for all panelists to be able to answer. Someone sent in, out of all these tips that you've shared today, if you could go back in time and know one in years earlier, which one would it be and why? I think that's a wonderful question to kind of end maybe today, and everyone can kind of share a little something.
I'll go first. In my presentation, sponsorship, or having a sponsor, was one that I noted. I would say that, again, having a champion that can will enter into rooms that you won't be in, but that can voice your desires and your opinions, I think is very paramount, especially in an organization when there's limited resources that they're allocating to all the individuals within that organization. So that's my one.
I think mine would probably be the one about being the last one in the room. You know, often when things are happening, and especially if you're anxious to get started on a project, or you've just had a really good meeting, you want to race out and you want to get started. Sometimes you might want to linger. You might want to hang back, and being the last one in the room means that you are truly a trusted advisor. That the decision maker, whoever that is, trusts your opinion enough to ask you to kind of hang back and let's talk through this a little bit more. So I think to me, that's probably the most valuable thing that I've learned, is to be the last one in the room, or at least have a good relationship with the person who is.
So for me, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay. So for me, it would be this idea of practicing being present in the moment. Took me a long time, and I'm still learning that. But it came later in life, even though I was alerted to it almost 25 years ago. But I didn't really start to be driven home to me until later in life. And it wasn't just in business, but it was in personal relationships. Not always trying to think about your retort and listen to what's being said. And the other thing that also woke me up was we had an unfortunate situation with my son where we lost one of our sons, but we had 7 years after notification that the outcome wasn't going to be pleasant. And I can tell you that woke me up to being present to my son. Get off the couch. Nothing he wants to do is too outrageous. So being present and practicing presence earlier in life, I think would have made me a more thoughtful person. And I would have understood other people's perspectives a lot better.
I think for me is being curious and continues to learn. It's a fast-paced world out there. Things are changing, so you have to continue to learn about something new. And one thing that early on in my career that still is the best advice that I've ever got is when you get bored, it's time for you to move on to the next role or next job, because being curious is the key.
I think for me is rethinking asking for help and receiving help as a sign of weakness, because I think getting over that, you have so much more poured into you that you can pour out into other people if you recognize and accept the assistance being offered.
And I'll just close out then. Mine goes back to the quote I shared on Be Yourself, because everyone else is taken. I think it took me 40 years to really live that. And I wish I would have really embraced that sooner in my life.
All wonderful tips. And I love that we're ending on that question, because I think it kind of summarizes at least 6 really solid ideas for our audience to take with them today. So what a great question. Thank you so much for submitting that. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we are going to go ahead and end. We have a few closing remarks still. So first, I'd just like to thank all of you again for being here today. And sharing your thoughts, your insights, philosophies, and lessons for success with us. We greatly appreciate all of your collective wisdom. So thank you. Currently at the moment, if you are interested in connecting with any of our speakers, you should see their contact information on your screen. We've also added this information to your chat. So there should be a live link in your chat right now, posted by Alicia Henley. There it is. And there's one, that link will have all of this information on it. So you can reach out to any of our speakers from today and connect with them in a variety of ways. You should also see slides as we go through for ways to connect and engage with various WashU Olin offices and programs. And we encourage you to capture any of the contact information and reach out to the speakers or the Olin offices for further engagement. So finally, before we go, I'd like to introduce real quickly Ms. Carrie Donnelly from our WashU Owens Graduate Admissions Office. She's going to share just a few updates and close out our program. Carrie, toss it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. As Amy mentioned, I'm Carrie Donnelly, and I'm with WashU Olin's Graduate Admissions team. Today, we've heard from some amazing leaders and gained many insights on how they approach their careers, make decisions, and run teams. I want to thank them all for their time and for inspiring us to be better leaders. WashU Olin's newly reimagined Executive MBA also focuses on leadership. Our values-based, data-driven approach to leadership is woven throughout the EMBA program curriculum from Go Week through the final capstone project. Students meet with certified executive leadership coaches throughout the program and even afterwards to develop a personalized, actionable leadership plan built around their own higher purpose statement. We've also launched a data-driven decision-making course to help leaders understand the ways technology affects business and how to build teams that harness the power of technology and data. We're very excited about our reimagined Executive MBA, and we're confident that this highly ranked program will produce great business leaders who aim to change the world for good. I'd like to invite you to learn more about our Executive MBA at an information session on Tuesday, February 16th. You can register using the short URL you see on your screen and in the chat window now. For those of you who've already expressed an interest in learning more about our EMBA program, you'll receive an email invite later this afternoon that includes this registration link. We look forward to seeing you there. And again, thank you all for attending today's annual 660-60 event. We hope you're able to put into practice some of the great ideas our panel shared. Please join us next Wednesday, February 3rd, as we host another fantastic and insightful WashU Olin event featuring alumna Lori Lee with AT&T and Professor Sam Chun as they discuss leadership on a global scale. Until then, we wish you well. Have a great afternoon.